I would like to, for those of you who don't know Robert Andrews is at Cardiff University, and he has been doing a lot of work on ELIXIR, an ELIXIR-UK version of Data Stewardship Wizard, and has some great user stories and some examples to show us. So I would like to, I think, unless there's anything I've missed, Zhenya or Robert, I think it might be nice to go straight into Robert, your talk.
Hello, everyone. What I'll do is I'll share. Now, this is quite a short presentation because we have focused a lot of time on the Q&A. So it looks like we've got a nice number on the call today. So this talk is really an extension from last month's call, where we are going to start looking at DMPs, so data management plans again. And what I'll do is I'll position work we've performed in the last year from our ELIXIR-UK fellows and also data steward partners, where we've created small pieces of work to help researchers manage life science data and then aggregated these onto a landing page. So I'm going to talk about products. So these are products you can use, customize, and then link to from your own pages, where you see these being helpful. But it's work from 8 universities and institutes with 13 people contributing content to this. So it's a real piece of co-created work. So the products I'll talk about are life science focused, but certainly when I come to speak about Data Stewardship Wizard, these can be deployed across all domains and not just the life sciences. And we have on the call today authors of this work, so we're able to run a good Q&A from the work and the questions that come up with this. So here are the products. So we have 17 example data management plans written by data stewards using the BBSRC and MRC DMP templates. And we've focused in on data types that we tend to see all the time in an attempt to maximize relevance here. We also have 8 short videos as part of our RDM Byte collection, where one of our fellows talks about how they approach writing a data management plan and what they consider. So for me, for example, I tend to ask 2 questions at the beginning. Are you working with human data? Because when you're working with human data, it tends to be a very different data management plan, but also, are you generating large data files? And that tends to shape what I end up writing with the PI. But the data steward that wrote these videos really goes through his own processes for this. We also have 4 fairy tales, and these are short stories written in the writer's own style, talking through a piece of work they performed specifically for the purpose of signposting for people who would like to perform similar work. So we have 3 pieces around something called Data Stewardship Wizard, and another which is more general about data stewardship. So the take home here is that these are all personal pieces of work from data stewards, and we haven't really focused in on being prescriptive or doing a collective voice. These are individuals saying, in my opinion, in my job, this is how I would actually approach the issue. So recognizing that data stewards working differently. Also, we aren't endorsing anything here. So we're looking at the capabilities of Data Stewardship Wizard, for example, as part of this because it's an ELIXIR product. But this is really one of a number of tools we could use, and I can show you these later. So for the first piece of work, the 17 example DMPs, they're written by 7 data stewards from across the country. This has generated some positive interest. So DMP pretty topical at the moment, certainly in the European space, where people are starting to talk about signposting examples of good practice. So there are a lot of good example data management plans out there. And I remember myself when I started off looking at the example DMPs on the University of Bristol website and being really impressed by what was there. Also, some really nice examples on DMP online. So this year in ELIXIR, it's likely we will do something internationally around aggregating what's good out there and signpost as a collection, and then have these released. So not about creating more of the same thing, but instead increasing visibility of what are good DMPs out in the international space. So the 7 data stewards first met to identify what we think would be most helpful by giving examples that include the common data types that we see, as well as trying to get a spectrum of examples across human, plant, and also modern organism. But also we've got an example of a large consortia study, and then also the medium and smaller studies where maybe only smaller amounts of data are collected. We've got a longitudinal clinical trial with 3 linked DMPs. We've also included reuse of public data and made an emphasis on this really in the spirit of fair and fair data. So this is how we did it. So even though I say we created 7 data management plans, each has 2 versions. So each has a long version and a short version. So in fact, we are releasing 34 DMPs, and I'll explain why. So this work was funded by BBSRC. So each DMP has a shorter version using the BBSRC DMP template and capped at a 500-word limit. What we also did was to merge the BBSRC template with the MRC into a longer form with aggregated titles, an attempt to provide more granularity, but also to future-proof. So if DMPs get longer, and if UK through their current consultation arrive at a new cross-domain DMP template, for example, then we can decant information from the longer DMPs we produced into a second release if a new template arrives. So all DMPs have a single author and additionally have been reviewed by 1 other data steward in the writing team. The shorter DMPs have been put into Data Stewardship Wizard, and we link to this wizard via a DOI from our webpage, but also we have these exported from DSW into Zenodo. The reasoning behind this was to be able to document the production and export of DMPs in Data Stewardship Wizard, which is one which is our fairy tale piece around hosting DSW and creating and sharing DMPs and their templates. So these example DMPs support the data stewardship piece, but themselves are a standalone product. So I'll just show you an example here. Here's an example. The blue is shorter. It's in DSW and also in Zenodo. The orange is longer. I'm currently only in Zenodo until we have a template we can use probably at the end of the year. And I wanted to show an example of the DMP in DSWs with the sections or DMP headings on the left as chapters, with the data steward wording on the right as well. So you have access to all of these. So to complement this piece of work, we're pulling in 8 short videos made by one of our fellows a while back. And in fact, he wrote these before the example DMPs were created. So these are short videos hosted on our YouTube channel and are part of a popular collection we're calling the RDM Byte. So these are short videos made by data stewards and researchers to signpost useful things about life science data management. And there's some real gems in here. In fact, there are 3 videos I use all the time about how to create and use data catalogs within teams and labs. And that was written by one of our fellows at Queen Mary's in London. Again, our personal thought process of how to write a data management plan. So what to consider, the sorts of questions you would ask yourself, just to give another route in for people who prefer visual and audio learning. So the third thing I want to showcase is Data Stewardship Wizard. So this is an ELIXIR output from the Czech and Dutch nodes. It's accessed via a web browser. There are interfaces to create or input DMP templates, and then use these as questionnaires to walk a researcher through writing a DMP. So you can share these and edit and then archive. So DSW does a lot more than I'm actually showing on this slide, but I'm kind of stating these points on the left that it is open source. It can be hosted locally or by the DSW team for fee. And something I really like is that an institution can host boilerplate text, meaning it can control and suggest text in various fields for its researchers. So, for example, when I review DMPs in-house, quite often the information about our data archive is out of date because it's been copy pasted from a previous incarnation of the DMP. So by an institution using something like DSW, they can control the descriptions of things around institutional infrastructures. So DSW, just pointing here, is very good documentation and training. We've signposted much of this in our fairy tales, which I mention over the next 3 slides. But as I say, it does more. There's work around being able to score fairness. So how fair is the data I'm producing? And linking in with something you hear a lot about now, which is the fair maturity model. It aligns too with the ELIXIR data ecosystem, where we're starting to get a joined upness across the ELIXIR resources. And we have a fairy tale from Alison about this as well. So the first fairy tale, I've just done some screenshots here. So it's 8 pages and details concepts, the ecosystem with the registry, which is a centralized repository of DMP templates, and how you can pull these onto your own DSW instance. So the author of this, who is actually a research software engineer, talks about how he hosted this locally and options for paid hosting, and then customizing, changing the look and feel of the interface with things like university logos, for example, and then how to code the export into a document that can be copy pasted into the UK Right funded service. Also, he's written a piece around using DSW, the API, and interfacing with AI. So just to note, this is a technical piece, and it really links and promotes the DSW documentation and really how you actually get started if you wanted to host this within your university or institute. And the second fairy tale is around how you create your own DMP template. So it's really a step on. It's how you customize to suit your own data, how you customize to suit the text that you can have from your institution. So for example, the boilerplate text I spoke about, and then talks a little bit about the ginger coding, the amount of preparation you need to do to create a questionnaire that you can walk a researcher through. So we also link to a third fairy tale, talking about DSW and fair sharing. So fair sharing is a great project and worth a look at. So in short, it's a registry of public data repositories and ontologies and data policies with a community and training around it. And it's really the place I go to first to find the appropriate public repository for life science data. And this is one of the ways in which the 2 projects are starting to work together now. So fair sharing in DSW. I mean, DSW, you can, if as a user, I can go in and define I'm working with a specific data type, and then trying to get to a point that the tool will then link to fair sharing and populate a drop down with the appropriate databases or metadata standards for the data I'm putting in. They're looking at a lot more, but that's really one of the examples that really I really like the look of that will certainly be helpful within my field of work. Right, this is hot off the press. This was released this morning. A nice piece from one of our chairs, Nick, about what a data steward does. Again, worth a read. So I come to the end. So this has been a group effort from a number of institutions. These people have offered much in the way of expertise and gratefully acknowledged. I wanted to acknowledge too our funding from BBSRC and our BioFAIR award, as well as very helpful conversations with DSW and the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, which is really where we started. So that was our front door into the work, and excellent steer on setting up and customizing the platform. So what I'll do is I'll just put up the QR code for the website. This is now up and ready to look and access the resources that we have. So thank you very much.